So now, like I said, the tail is done. The next thing that we have to think about before we join the wing is how we're going to do this battery access hatch. I mean, ultimately, it's up to you guys. Mark has supplied 4 magnets, and what you want is you want a battery hatch that's easy to get in and out, but doesn't open in flight. So it's a very big battery tray. There's a standard 2200, as you can see. Let's move some stuff out of the way. There's tons of room in here for batteries. Matter of fact, more than you'll ever need. Width-wise, you can get a 5,000 pack in here. Now, this is a 4S pack. You can see the height difference between a 4S and a 3S. I've never seen a 3S as tall as a 4S is, but the 4S does fit in here. It fits. So the height, the width, the length, we're good. We got a really big battery opening. We are getting closer. So I've done the tail. You can see my tail's painted. That's dry. Now I can go on to the next step, which is making this battery hatch. The wing is not glued on, the tail's not glued on, and this isn't glued on. The great thing about model aviation in Canada is build whatever you want. But I haven't really thought this through. Mark had a way of doing it. I'm just trying to make this a little more durable. So I think I've come up with an idea. I'm going to show you how this idea works. Ultimately, it's up to you. All we're trying to accomplish is to get the battery in the top. We don't want the battery in the bottom. First off, it's not designed that way, because every time you flip it over, you'll be setting it on the tail, and eventually you'll break the tail off. So we want to be able to set it on the table, put the battery in, put the hatch on, and fly. Okay, so these lines that he's already drawn are really, really important because they line up with everything. You can see that this almost lines up perfectly right here with this line. And that's not by accident. It's a little bit over. That's because we can trim a little bit over there. So we kind of want this canopy, we want it in this area here. That's where it belongs. That's the scale look, yada, yada, yada. So this part is going to become the top of your battery hatch, and that will be removable. This part gets glued to the wing, and this part gets glued to the fuse. So that's the concept. No matter how you do it, that's what we envisioned. My idea is I am going to cut this hatch right now with a straight edge in real time, very, very carefully. I'm going to cut it this way and this way. Brand new, super duper sharp number 11 X-Acto, because Depron dulls blades real quick. I'll cut this way, then very carefully that way, and I'll have a 2-part hatch, because this obviously isn't glued together yet. Then I'm going to take and cut this guy here and here, and once I'm happy with how everything works, I'm going to attach him and him. I'm still not going to glue this on, because I want to be able to flip it over. And then I'm going to show you some stuff on the inside. This requires me to concentrate, so I'm going to turn the camera off. I don't want you to see me screwing this up. I've spent about 3 days thinking about how I'm going to do this, and it's time to do some cutting, and there's no going back because I don't have any spare kits. So, wish me luck. Just for shits and giggles, I will videotape this, and if it works, I'll keep the video. So there's my straight edge. I'm right down that line. Very carefully score this puppy all the way down there. I've taped everything so nothing can move. You want to make sure you're not cutting through that carbon fiber spar. Although if you just nick it, we can always get out the big guns and cut carbon fiber. I don't really like doing that though. No, I'm good. So I've cut all the way through. Whew, one cut done. And then we'll come over here, get our straight edge, line her up. Still got my super sharp blade. Takes 3 scores, make sure you're square. Now Mark was using an angled cut in, and that also works. And again, it's up to you to decide how you want to do this. I'm just trying to make something that's a little more durable. Something that stays on in flight. And hopefully is actually a little bit easier to build. So I'm just cutting square. I'm going to show you why in a second. So I've got my lengthwise cuts. I'm going to very carefully get this guy nice and square. Very careful not to overcut. So I like to use the tip of the blade. Depron is actually a lot like aluminum. If you cut too far, you can get stress risers, and your cuts will propagate. So try to be undercut. You see the top of my head. So again, right where Mark has put those lines. So we'll just draw it across. Kind of use the tip of the blade as a poker. We're all the way through, and then I'll come back on this side, spin the blade around, and do like that. Okay, it's enough of the straight edge. Now we just do the final little bit. Oh yeah, she's already popped over there. Get that blade down in that pre-cut. Get her over to there. There's one half popped off. Not quite. And there we go. All right, keep that together because that's now a piece. And we're going to put some tape on the other side to make sure that this is now a piece. You can see we cut the packing tape. But look at, we got an access hatch. But what we've also got, to keep that hatch from falling down inside, all we got to do, and I have scrap Depron. You can use scraps of balsa, by the way. Whatever you got laying around, this triangle stock would actually work perfect, because what we're going to do is we're just going to stick some scraps of balsa or scraps of Depron on the inside, up underneath. Let's see if you can see that on the camera. Yeah, up underneath in here. And the reason we're going to put it inside this, or on the outside of the Velcro, because what that does is, if you can see it, it gives us a hatch seat. So when the hatch goes down, it rests on that edge and the hatch can't fall in. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of Depron across the back, or maybe a piece of balsa. It doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to I want this forward enough. I'll have to do a little bit of cutting and fitting. And I want a piece across the back so that the hatch goes boonk. And then I can put my magnet right there. I'll probably put some kind of little poker here on the front. So the idea is you slide it in. We'll sand this a little wee bit so it's not quite so tight. And then click. And your magnet will grab it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to mock all this up. It's way quicker without the camera running. And then I'll show you what the final product kind of looks like. But that's the idea. And again, I still have not glued. This wing is not glued on. And now that I've cut the tape, the wing comes right off just like that. And that gives me access to, if I need to hold this, clamp this, glue this, do all the little things that I need to do. And I can get at the underside of the wing so I can put any bracing underneath there. So I'll go ahead and mock it all up. I'll be right back. I ever tell you guys a story about engineers and how I think they can take simple things and make them so complicated nobody can ever possibly do it? That's what I'm doing. So again, we want an access hatch that doesn't fall in and also doesn't fly off, and one that's durable. So I've cut it out because there's tape on one side. Super easy. Flip it over. CA, foam safe CA. Kick it, squish it, and now I have a part. Lightly sanded all the edges just to make sure they're nice and smooth, but it's still a really tight fit. Okay, so what you'll see is I've got doublers in here. I'm just going to show you what I did. So I'm using scraps of Depron. If you don't have them, we'll supply it. You can also use scraps of balsa. It doesn't really matter. Here's a doubler, and it's going to go in underneath the lip, underneath here, on both sides. And we're just going to glue that in with foam safe CA again because it's quick. And you can see that's a shelf so that this can't fall in. And our battery, where did I put our battery? Here's our 2200. You can see still lots of room for the battery, no problem. So we're not losing all that much space. At the back, here's the secret. At the back, I've got this little piece with a notch cut. I might 3D print these, we'll see. But it doesn't get glued to this, it gets glued to the wing. And here's what I'm thinking. So, because I've already done the back, I've got an alignment mark back there. I can just Zorch that guy in there. Line it up there, line it up there. And what's going to happen is this guy, I'm going to glue him in onto the wing like that. And of course it falls. And the idea is that's giving us something at the back where, blunk, the hatch can't possibly fall in now. Even better, I might mount the magnets there, although I'm still thinking these ventral fins might be. But anyways, now the hatch can't fall in, and I only added 2 pieces of foam, which is super good. So now the hard part is getting the damn thing out. There we go. So this is why we want the wing to be removable. Like I said, we're going to glue this to the wing. We're not going to glue it to the fuse. And those 2 little notches, when we do finally glue the fuse on, it'll fit and everything will lock in. The most important thing is make sure you can still get at your fingers behind here so you can make a battery connection. I don't think the battery is going to be back there. I think the battery is going to be right about where Mark had it. We can move it fore and aft for CAG. I don't think it'll be a problem. And like I said, the next step is I've got to go and make some cuts on this girl and get everything to fit. So I want to make sure that this works. I got to think this through a little wee bit more, but it's got promise. And again, if you don't have the Depron to do this, we can get you some. I got lots of spare here in Winnipeg. Mark has lots where he's from. But you could also work with balsa. You can also use Dollar Tree foam board. If you have any of that kicking around, it's a little heavier, but you know what? We're just doing really small pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all this up, and then we'll go to the next step. All right, so here's kind of what she's shaping up to look like. So this little former gets glued to the bottom of the wing, and that forms the little locker. We've got the doublers on either side so it can't fall in. And in theory, if we line all this up, and we drop it in, boom, you should have the ability to drop a hatch, boom, a hatch that can't fall in. Now all we have to do is figure out how to stick it on there. Now, one of the things that I always like to do on the front, I'm going to take another piece of Depron, and I'm going to make a little tab on the front. We got to be careful. We don't want to lose height here. So maybe, you know what? I'm even going to go with something thinner, thin little piece of balsa. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little piece of balsa so that it sticks out, and then I can just slide that in. Then the front is locked, and all I got to do is put a magnet. This should work. I don't know. Let's find out. By the way, you can absolutely use foam safe CA to glue to balsa wood to Depron. So again, I like to do it this way. Get the glue on there first, get the kicker. And this is on the underside of this little battery access hatch, right? And all I'm trying to do is just make a tab. Doesn't have to be huge. Matter of fact, the smaller the better. Center it. I made the piece of balsa long enough that it covers this joint. We're going to put something on the top, but hey, let's make it strong. And this is, I think it's 16th balsa. It doesn't have to be thick. I mean, we're just holding a hatch. We're not holding the world together. Yeah, my nose is still good. Okay, so the idea is make sure that glue is not wet. Now, what I should be able to do is stick that in. Book. Look at that. Gorgeous. Now I just got to figure out the second part. I'm halfway done to making a really nice little hatch.